So you've watched a ton of videos on narcissism and you already know mostly how to deal with narcissists, right? You've tried the gray rock method and you've thought about no contact or you've gone no contact, right? But how do you deal with your own emotions when it comes to having been in a relationship with a toxic narcissist, whether you're still in the relationship or you're already out? That's what we're talking about today at queenbeing.com. How to deal with your emotions in regard to having been abused by a narcissist. Let's get started. My name's Angie Atkinson, and on this channel, I offer free daily video coaching to help you discover, understand, and overcome narcissistic abuse in toxic relationships. I like to call it toxic relationship rehab. Sound good? If so, hit that subscribe button and let's get going. So in regard to dealing with your emotions about your abuse from a narcissist, one of the first and most important things you can do is figure out exactly what type of narcissist you are dealing with. That will help you figure out what other steps you need to take. So for the purpose of today's video, we're going to talk about a couple of different things. First of all, you've got vulnerable narcissists and grandiose narcissists. Then you've got those who are happy and those who are unhappy in general. When you look at these two different kinds of narcissists, the grandiose and the vulnerable, those who are the grandiose types tend to appear happier. They tend to be more satisfied with their social lives, more extroverted, and more generally stable on an emotional level. And when we're talking about your covert types or your vulnerable types of narcissists, they're going to be less happy, less agreeable, more likely to be emotionally unstable, and they're more likely to lean toward manipulativeness and even psychopathy. So being aware of that is important. Now, when we're talking about the vulnerable type of narcissist, we're talking about someone who generally doesn't feel very good about themselves to begin with. While the grandiose narcissist tends to be more out there and obvious with their emotions, the vulnerable type is less likely to do that. They're going to be sneakier than your overt narcissist or your grandiose narcissist. So in the grand scheme of things, if the grandiose narcissist is someone in your family or someone you work with, the best way to sort of handle them is to get them on your team to help you solve whatever problem is going on. But if you're talking about a romantic partner or something like that, then the best way to handle them is a lot different than that. It's to go no contact. Since the vulnerable narcissist doesn't feel very good about him or herself, the vulnerable narcissist is also more likely to try to sneak around and manipulate you. The next thing you need to do is acknowledge that this person's driving you nuts or that they're upsetting you or annoying you. Narcissists have this way of antagonizing us, of almost intentionally kind of getting under our skin. So if you're attempting to get something done, that person is going to do whatever they can to interrupt you and stop you and slow you down. It's incredibly frustrating. But it's all about shining the light on themselves instead of whatever it is that you're paying attention to. They're looking for that narcissistic supply. But if you recognize that as the problem, then you can sort of get the strength to put a stop to it. Recognizing the frustration can help you take it from annoying to non-existent if you're careful. The next thing that's important to remember is that you need to know where the behavior is coming from. And in most cases, it's coming from a place of insecurity, believe it or not. They can be sneaky and undercutting, and in so doing, they're trying to make themselves feel better about themselves. In a work situation, might create a certain amount of question about your authority. They may undermine your authority just to cause trouble. But if you're dealing with them in a work situation or a friend situation or a family situation, if you know this, then you can offer them just enough reassurance that they will lay off. You recognize their insecurity, you cater to it just a tiny bit, and it handles the situation. But be careful not to overdo it, because if you overdo it, that's going to rile their little egos up and not help anything at all. Now, once you've taken the time to figure out exactly who you're dealing with and how to handle them, we're back to ourselves. How do we deal with our own stuff? Well, for me personally, it always helps me to understand on a logical level who I'm dealing with. When we're talking about narcissists, they do this one thing almost across the board that causes us to feel crazy, besides the gaslighting and all the manipulation, and that is that they just directly step over boundaries like they aren't even there. In fact, if you say, here's a boundary, they're more likely to step over that line than they would had you not identified it. You've got to recognize that as important as it is for you to understand where they're coming from, simply for your own peace of mind, it's equally important, even more important for you to understand your own emotions about the situation. So sit down and figure it out. What are the things about this person that specifically bother you the most? What are the things about this person that are triggering you and making you feel angry and upset and sad and crazy, which you're not, by the way. And once you've looked inside of yourself and figured out, okay, this is what I'm uncomfortable about, this is what I hate, this is what I dislike, this is what my problem is, then you can create a plan to move forward and handle those emotions bit by bit. And here's what the thing is about this. As you're going through this with a narcissist, you very often find yourself going, I've learned new things about myself that I didn't know before. So here's the silver lining to this narcissist cloud. We come out of this being, as I've told you before, stronger than most people we know in real lives. And also with better self-knowledge than most people you know in real life. You begin to understand yourself on a level so deep that it's beyond what the average person does. So you want to come up with a plan to help you stay sane. So even though I just told you that narcissists are going to step over boundaries when you set them, now is the time to set them. It's the time to set them and set them in stone. Do not allow them to be overstepped. And if they are overstepped, if you're still in the relationship, this is the point at which you turn around and walk away, whether it's permanently or temporarily. You might just leave the room if they start an argument when you have asked them not to argue, or you might just ignore them and remove that much needed supply from them if they don't do as you've asked them to do, if they don't stay within your boundaries. However, if you're no longer with them, those boundaries need to be there in stone, and you need to be prepared to call the police if necessary, or to stop all contact if necessary, depending on the situation. Make them follow the rules. Make them stay within your boundaries. You've got to put yourself first, whether you're still in the relationship or not, because if you don't, no one else is going to. You've got to have a plan to avoid yourself being drained by this person. If they cross the line, they will know the consequence. If the consequence is one that you are willing to follow through with. You can't say to this person, if you don't do X, I will never speak to you again, if you'll really continue to speak to them. If you set a boundary in place with a consequence, make sure that you follow the consequence no matter what, even if it's painful for you to do so. You've got to see this situation from the most gentle possible place. Narcissists don't do well with ultimatums. They don't do well with in-your-face stuff like this, right? You've got to come at them in a gentle, roundabout way. If you come at them like you would come at a normal person and you say, look here, here's what I'm dealing with, here's what the consequences will be if it doesn't go this way, X, Y, Z, you know what they're going to do. They're going to either shut down, they're going to rage, or they're going to run. They're not going to handle a regular conversation like a regular person would. They're going to quickly get defensive, and that's again relating right back to their little insecurity problem. The lack of sensitivity and empathy don't help in this situation. Anytime you give them constructive criticism, it can backfire on you. Anytime you say anything other than, oh my God, you're so amazing, it can get really messed up. And this is even true if your intention is only to help them. You don't want to put yourself in a position to be in direct conflict with a narcissist, if at all possible, if you're trying to maintain any sort of relationship with them. A few important things to remember about the narcissist. Number one, they're very charming, and they're good at making us believe that they're going to get better. They're good at painting the false future thing. They future fake really well. They're good at sort of showing us an ideal situation that can really want to, draw us in. An ideal fantasy situation, right? That doesn't really exist. And even when we know them forever, we still fall for them sometimes when they tell us these great stories. We're attracted to the idea of their confidence or their apparent confidence. And the worse our own self-esteem is, the more likely it is for us to be sucked in by them. So one of the most important things you can do for yourself here is to work on your own self-esteem. Find a way to love yourself so hard that they can't break your shell, so to speak. They can't get into your mind and tell you who you're supposed to be or who they expect you to be or whatever. It's a fantasy, and it's one that can cost you a lot if you're not aware of it. You need to understand that no matter what happens, your needs will not ever, ever, ever in the long term be fulfilled by the narcissist. In fact, the narcissist won't even recognize your needs. A narcissist is never looking for a partner. They're always looking for someone who's sort of like an admirer who obeys them. Your value to them is what you do for them. It is not who you are as a person. The only time the value of who you are as a person is worth anything to them is if it makes you do things for them or if it impresses other people in their lives. Your desires and your feelings don't matter to a narcissist. You have to see the way the narcissist treats other people. That's one of the easiest ways for you to really recognize what you're dealing with. If they lie to people, if they hurt people, manipulate people in their lives, disrespect people, people they know, people they don't know, eventually that's coming your way. And if you're aware of that early in the relationship, you can use that as a red flag. Based on what you've seen already with the narcissist that you've dealt with, you can't fall for that fantasy. You can't fall for that fantasy that you're different and you're going to be spared from the drama and the stuff. No matter what happens, don't buy into the narcissist's version of who you are. That's really important when you're managing your emotions. Know who you are. That's why it's so important to work on your self-esteem in these situations. They don't live in reality, the narcissists, and that includes how they see you and everyone else in their lives. So don't let their own little shame and their little blame games and all this stuff stick to you. Just absolutely refuse to accept responsibility for their problems. Refuse to accept blame or criticism that isn't due to you. That doesn't belong to you. That belongs to the narcissist. Remember not to bother arguing with a narcissist. It just wastes your energy. So while your natural instinct may be to defend yourself when the narcissist attacks you, the best thing you can do is to say, oh, that's very interesting. Great, rock 'em. Don't give them your energy. Don't waste your breath. If you need to say, I disagree with you, then say that and move on. When they immediately negate what you've said, say, okay, well, I've said what I had to say, and move on. Don't continue any negativity. Know yourself well enough to know that you deserve better. The best way to defend yourself against a narcissist, against their insults, against their projections, is to have a very strong sense of who you are, a strong sense of self. When you know your own strengths and your own weaknesses, it's a lot easier for you to be able to reject those unfair criticisms that are thrown at you. And finally, let go of the need to have the narcissist's approval. You ain't gonna get it. And even if you get it, it'll be temporary and false. So keep that in mind. If you're going to stay in the relationship, you've got to find help and support from someone else. The narcissist cannot give you proper support. Don't forget that. But my advice, as always, if possible, go no contact. If it's not possible, go low contact. If you're stuck in the situation because you have kids or because there are money problems, stay as neutral as you can. Don't give them your emotion. And if you have to give it to them as little as possible. And you can teach them to treat you nicely, or at least politely, or at least more often than not, by not giving them your emotion unless it's positive emotion if you're still in the relationship. Above all, you have to keep your positive outlook. Don't let the narcissist put you in that little box that makes you feel like miserable all the time. And if they do, step out of there. Know that they derive pleasure from watching you suffer. Know that it gives them the supply that they want. And if for no other reason, don't give it to them just because they don't deserve it. If they see your pain, they're only going to continue to be aggressive. So if you try the gray rock method, if you don't allow them to see your pain, keep yourself calm, expressionless, and don't give them even one little bit of emotion. That will take away their supply, and hopefully they'll become bored and move on. Even if you feel stressed out and annoyed, don't let them see it. Don't forget to keep your sense of humor. I know it feels hard right now, but keep that intact. It helps a lot. Don't forget to stay on track. Don't let yourself become derailed by this narcissist and their abuse. Stay focused on what you want, or get refocused now on what you want, what you can control, not what you can't control. And don't forget, this is the hardest time to do this, but it's the most important time. Take the time every day to think of 10 things you're grateful for and 3 things that you love about yourself. It can help to change your vibration in the right direction. All right, now this brings me to the question of the day. And the question of the day is, how have you coped with your emotions regarding a narcissist and their abuse? Share your thoughts and your experiences in the comments section below, and maybe you can help another survivor. That's all I've got for you right now. Thank you so much for being a part of my day and a part of my life. And hey, thanks for letting me be a part of yours. It really does mean a lot to me. I'll see you soon.
It's my mission to teach others what I know to be true. You really can create the life you want. Take care of your body, take care of your soul, nurture the real you, and introduce him or her to the world. Be comfortable in your own skin and in your place in this world. Take your spot, take it now, and the universe will take its cue from you. You feel me? If so, subscribe to my channel. Let's get it done together.